Ethan's revenge. I came home from a weekend work trip to find her wedding dress stuffed in a garbage bag by the front door. No note. No explanation. Just crumpled silk and silence. Her name is Emily Parker. We were supposed to be getting married in 12 days. Third time's the charm, right? That's what I told myself, even as the deposits stacked up and the venue kept moving. First postponement was because of COVID. Second, she said she wasn't emotionally ready. The third, she needed space. My name is Ryan Cole, 38 years old, project manager for a logistics firm outside of Denver. Structured, methodical, loyal to a fault. The kind of guy who builds 5-year plans and actually sticks to them. I don't throw tantrums. I don't chase drama. I handle things the way I was raised to, quietly, deliberately. Emily and I met 4 years ago at a leadership seminar. She was smart, driven, had this dry humor that caught me off guard. We started dating, moved in after a year, got engaged in 2. By the 3rd year, I'd put her name on the house deed. She quit her job at a tech startup last spring. Said she wanted time to figure herself out. I didn't push. I made enough to cover us both. I figured she'd land on her feet. She always did. When she canceled our wedding for the 3rd time, she cried on the couch and said it wasn't me. It was her. That she still loved me, but something in her soul felt trapped. Said she needed clarity, needed to breathe. Told me she was going to stay at her sister's for a while. I nodded, kissed her forehead, helped her pack a weekend bag, and I believed her. Until Monday afternoon, when I stopped by her sister's to drop off her laptop charger, and her sister opened the door with a confused look. "Emily's not here," she said. "Haven't seen her since last month." I didn't say anything. I just turned around, got in my truck, and drove. That night, I sat in the dark with a bottle of scotch and a quiet storm building in my chest. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was processing. The next morning, I opened a spreadsheet. Created a tab called Trace. I listed passwords, shared accounts, login histories. My backgrounds in operations, timelines, tracking, behavioral patterns. That's what I do. So I treated this like any other system problem. One with moving parts. One with inconsistencies. The inconsistencies started showing up fast. Hotel bookings under my card. 2-day yoga retreats with no flight records. Deleted call logs on the shared plan. A new Uber drop-off pin in Boulder. I checked the security cams I'd installed last year, thinking only about burglary at the time. One clip, timestamp 2:17 a.m. last Saturday, showed her slipping into a black SUV I didn't recognize. I traced the plates through a buddy of mine in law enforcement. The car belonged to Michael L. Hayes, 44, married, 2 kids. What I did next, they'll never forget. I didn't scream. I didn't call her. I didn't even confront her. Instead, I opened a new tab in my spreadsheet labeled Surveillance. Michael Hayes, Regional Sales Director for a pharmaceutical company based in Boulder. Married 16 years. 2 kids in middle school. Suburbia incarnate. The kind of guy who wears Patagonia vests and calls himself a family man on LinkedIn. His wife's name was Dana. Kindergarten teacher. PDA board member. I found her Instagram in 2 clicks. Their last photo as a family. 3 weeks ago at a Rockies game. Smiling. Matching jerseys. Emily liked the post. I started mapping patterns. Dates, times, locations. The more I dug, the more it unraveled. Turns out Emily's yoga retreat was actually a weekend at the St. Julian Hotel, booked through Michael's rewards account. I tracked her calendar notes. Every self-care day lined up with one of his out-of-town conferences. 2 lives built in parallel, never touching, until now. But here's the thing about people who lead double lives. They get sloppy. They assume silence means safety. They think if you're not yelling, you're not watching. That's where they make their first mistake. On Wednesday, I stopped by the storage unit I'd kept under a different name since college. Mostly old tools, camping gear, but tucked in a waterproof case was my grandfather's military-style notebook. Hard leather. Acid-free pages. No cloud backups. No digital trail. I labeled the first page objective. Uncover full extent of the deception. Secure evidence. Protect assets. Neutralize threats. I started writing. Dates. Conversations. Bank transactions. Screen captures. Every pattern had a purpose. Every note was a breadcrumb. My anger didn't flare up. It narrowed into something colder. Something useful. That night, I checked the shared savings account Emily and I had built over 4 years. It was down by $12,500. I traced the withdrawals. Split over 8 weeks. Quiet, consistent leaks. Not big enough to trigger alerts, but just enough to prepare for an exit. I opened a new account in my name only. Transferred what remained of my bonus from last quarter. Set up alerts for any transaction over $50 on our joint card. Changed my passwords. Pulled credit reports. Checked the deed on the house. I'd bought the house 5 years ago. Emily moved in after the second year. Her name was never added to the mortgage, but we refinanced last fall. She'd insisted. Wanted to feel more connected to the place. That refinance paperwork? I pulled it from the fireproof cabinet in the closet. She'd forged my signature. I didn't need to guess. My own signature is angular, military influence. The one on the refinance looked soft, curved, rushed. And the middle initial was wrong. I took a deep breath and closed the file. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was a tactical breach. I didn't call my lawyer. Not yet. I called Mark Whitaker. High school friend. Works corporate compliance now. He owed me a favor. I gave him one line. I need everything you can find on Michael Hayes. Quietly. No flags. He answered with one word. Understood. By Friday morning, I had everything cataloged. Mark came through faster than I expected. He sent over a secure folder labeled Michael Hayes. Background check. Confidential. Inside was a decade's worth of data, employment records, property holdings, corporate travel logs, even old complaints buried deep inside HR memos. Michael had a type. Emily wasn't the first. She was just the most committed. 3 years ago, a quiet exit from another department. A woman named Lawrence something. HR had sealed the file under personal conflict. Nothing ever went public, but there was a memo. Advise against joint assignments. Mark flagged it as familiar language, corporate code for keep them apart, but don't ask questions. Michael's travel logs told their own story. 2-day client visits in Aspen that overlapped exactly with Emily's solo weekends. Every fourth Thursday, same hotel in Fort Collins. Same checkout time, 11:12 a.m. No rental car, always the same black Escalade. Same parking deck. He was either reckless or arrogant. Probably both. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her role at home. Casual, affectionate. Even made banana bread on Tuesday. I watched her lay the slices out on a plate like nothing was wrong. She didn't know I'd started keeping a record. She didn't know I'd contacted a forensic document examiner about the refinance. She didn't know I'd pulled the full history of her recent Venmo activity. Michael's initials showed up 3 times, buried in private notes. M, L, H, yoga split, room upgrade. This wasn't a lapse. It was a life. And she'd been building it one transaction at a time. That night, I went to the garage. Pulled out the camera system I'd bought for the front yard last year, but never installed. I mounted the new camera above the garage. Motion activated. 1080p, infrared. Synced to my private cloud, not the one she had access to. I set another one in the living room. Disguised as a thermostat. Nothing flashy. Just quiet control. The next day, I went to the hardware store. Bought a new lock. Installed it on the basement door. The key stayed on my ring. No one else's. I wasn't spiraling. I wasn't breaking down. I was preparing. Emily went out around 6 p.m. Told me she was grabbing wine for a girls' night with someone named Tara. There was no Tara in her call log. Just the same number saved as Jen Pilates, the one that matched Michael's burner line from a prepaid account. At 9:13 p.m., the new camera caught her slipping back into the house. No wine. No purse. Hair a little messier than when she left. She kissed me goodnight like nothing happened. I watched the footage twice, just to be sure. By Sunday, I had what I needed. I'd tracked her lies. Secured the assets. Backed up the proof. The only thing left now was to set the stage. On Monday morning, I made her coffee. 2 sugars, almond milk. Just like she liked it. She came downstairs in her robe, kissed my cheek, and said she was thinking about rescheduling the wedding. That maybe we'd been rushing before, and she just needed time to feel aligned. Her voice was soft, measured, like she was giving a TED talk on emotional maturity. I nodded, told her it was okay, that I understood. She smiled like she believed me. But what she didn't know was that I'd already printed every transaction, every login, every time-stamped camera clip. I had a flash drive tucked in my jacket pocket and a sealed envelope in the glove box. One copy was in a safe deposit box downtown. Another was already with Mark. This wasn't about catching her in the act anymore. This was about exposure, timing, control. And Michael? I'd watched him closely. That weekend, he'd sent Emily a hotel confirmation for a trip to Santa Fe. Conference cover story. 2 nights. Emily had added a friend's birthday to our shared calendar, same days. A placeholder lie. They were preparing for a soft exit. I could see it forming. The withdrawals. The forged refinance. The unexplained charges. She wasn't going to leave with just Michael. She was going to leave with the house. With money. But she'd underestimated the quiet ones. The ones who read the fine print. I took the afternoon off work. No explanation. Just burned a personal day. Drove to the county clerk's office. Filed an affidavit contesting the refinance on the grounds of forgery. Attached the preliminary handwriting analysis. I left with a stamped copy and the clerk's raised eyebrow. She'd said she needed space. She was about to get all the space she could handle. At home, I was careful, calm. I folded laundry, cooked dinner. We watched a documentary like nothing was wrong. When she leaned into me on the couch, I let her. When she scrolled through her phone under the blanket, I didn't ask questions. But I did take a mental note of the smirk that slipped across her face during one of those texts. Later, after she went to sleep, I opened my laptop and logged into our Nest account. Watched her text history on the synced iPad she'd forgotten to unlink from our home Wi-Fi. Saw the conversation. Michael, she's still clueless? Emily, totally. I think I can get the deed signed by next week. Michael, play it slow. No red flags. Emily, he's a planner. He doesn't do chaos. That's why this works. She was right. I don't do chaos. I design it. One line stood out. Not because it hurt, but because of what it confirmed. Emily, he'll never see it coming. I closed the tab. Locked the file. Shut the laptop. I had seen everything coming. She just hadn't seen what I was going to do next. By Wednesday, I'd stopped wondering how far she'd go. I knew. What I didn't know was how far they were willing to go. So I decided to find out. I took a vacation day. Told Emily I had client meetings. She barely looked up from her phone. Said something about going to lunch with Tara again. At 9 a.m., I was parked outside Michael Hayes' office building. Watched him roll in late, alone, no briefcase. Just confidence. I followed him, not with my car, but with a camera lens from the rooftop garage across the street. Snapped shots of him on the phone, pacing outside, texting. It wasn't just business. At 11:42, he walked outside, got in his SUV, and drove. I followed on foot. 2 blocks later, he walked into a flower shop. 5 minutes passed. He came out with a white orchid. Not for his wife. Dana hated orchids. She'd said so in a blog post years ago. I read every word. The orchid was for Emily. I waited until he was out of sight, then entered the shop. Asked the clerk what name the purchase had been for. She smiled and said prepaid, pickup under EP. Same as last week. Got it. Back home, I opened my notebook and wrote one word under active strategy, divide. That night, I cooked her favorite dinner. Candlelight. Music. She leaned in, smiling, sipping her wine. She said she felt like we were reconnecting. I nodded. Told her I had a surprise trip planned for us, Santa Fe. Weekend getaway. Same dates as her birthday trip. Her fork froze midair. You already booked it? She asked. I smiled. Non-refundable. Her eyes did a quick calculation, then softened. I'll make it work. She wouldn't. That much was certain. Thursday morning, I made 2 stops. First, the title office. I requested a hold be placed on any property transactions connected to our address, pending investigation of forged documents. The clerk didn't ask questions. They never do when you have notarized proof. Second stop, Dana Hayes' workplace. I didn't go inside. Just left a sealed envelope at the front desk. No return address. Inside was a flash drive labeled Your Husband. Read first, containing screenshots, booking confirmations, and camera footage of Michael and Emily. I knew the moment she opened it. At 7:22 p.m., Dana's public Facebook profile went dark. At 8:01, Michael's did too. At 8:46, Emily got a text. She locked her phone. Her expression cracked for the first time in weeks. I kept eating. Silent. Steady. By 10 p.m., she was packing a bag. Said she needed a little time to think. I helped her zip it closed. Walked her to the door. Watched her drive off. She didn't know I had just revoked her access to the house. Didn't know the locks had changed. Didn't know her game was already over. She came back Saturday morning, wearing sunglasses, hoodie pulled tight, her suitcase dragged behind her like a defeated soldier. She didn't knock, just reached for the door like nothing had changed. It didn't open. She tried again. Still locked. That's when she noticed the keypad had been replaced. She pulled out her phone and called me. I let it ring. No answer. Then she texted, "Garage code's not working. Can you unlock the door?" I didn't reply. Not yet. From the upstairs window, I watched her try the side entrance. Then the back gate. Nothing. Another message. "Ryan, what's going on?" That was when I sent the first text. "The house is under fraud investigation. You no longer have access." She didn't reply right away. Just stood there, staring at her phone, absorbing the words. Finally, she wrote back. "Fraud? What are you talking about?" I waited a full minute before responding. Forged refinance. Withdrawals. Coordinated deception. All documented. The next text was longer. A wall of denial, blame shifting, panic. Said I was overreacting. That she didn't know what I was talking about. That I was acting crazy. She said we needed to talk things through. I didn't answer. Just sent one final message. "Everything's been submitted. You'll be contacted." 10 minutes later, she was gone. But it wasn't over. By noon, I'd received an email from her lawyer. It was laughable, vague accusations, implied threats, and a request for a fair distribution of assets. I forwarded it to Mark, who had already connected me to a real attorney, someone who didn't blink at betrayal, forgery, or theft. That same afternoon, I met with a forensic analyst. I handed him the refinance paperwork and my original mortgage documents. He took one look and said, "This won't take long." Meanwhile, Dana Hayes had begun to make moves of her own. According to Mark, she'd frozen 3 of Michael's accounts, changed the locks on her home, and retained a divorce attorney with a reputation for high-net-worth cases. The kind who doesn't negotiate. She was going scorched earth. By Sunday evening, Michael texted me, "You need to back off. We can settle this between us." I didn't reply. Instead, I saved the message and flagged it from my file. Emily hadn't returned to the house. Her things were still inside, untouched. But I wasn't worried. She'd lost her leverage. The account access was gone. The financials were frozen. The house, legally mine, now under pending fraud review. She thought silence was weakness. She thought quiet meant forgiveness. But quiet is just strategy wearing patience like armor. And I wasn't done yet. Because I had one more envelope to deliver. And this one would burn everything they'd tried to build. On Monday morning, I mailed a package. It was addressed to Human Resources at Michael Hayes' company. Inside was a letter marked confidential and a neatly organized folder containing receipts, photos, and logs showing misuse of corporate travel accounts. Hotel bookings under client codes, used for personal rendezvous. A pattern so consistent it could pass for payroll. I didn't sign the letter. I didn't need to. The documents spoke for themselves. At 3:27 p.m., Michael's LinkedIn profile went dark. That was the first ripple. The second came at 5:11 p.m. when Emily called me 6 times in a row. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail this time. Her voice was shaky. Said she didn't know how things had spiraled so far. That she was scared. That she made a mistake. That maybe we could still fix things. She hadn't said my name like that in a long time. Like she remembered who I was. But it didn't change anything. What she called a mistake was a system. A long, calculated system. And I don't fix systems that were built to fail. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with a pen and a blank sheet of paper. Wrote out a list, final actions. File formal fraud claim with mortgage provider. Submit notarized statement to county recorder. Transfer ownership of joint vehicle to solo title. Schedule locksmith for storage unit. Finalize asset protection through attorney. I moved like a man rebuilding after a flood. Not with grief, but with blueprints. Emily showed up in person the next night. I watched her on the front camera, standing outside in the rain, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She knocked once. Waited. Knocked again. No umbrella. No words. Just silence. I didn't open the door. She stood there for 9 minutes. Then walked away. Later that night, I received an email from her lawyer. They were requesting mediation, framed it as a chance to settle matters amicably. I forwarded it to mine without comment. The next morning, I received a message from Dana. She thanked me, said she finally understood what had been whispered around her for years, said she'd hired a forensic accountant of her own. Michael's records would be torn open, every dollar, every hidden line item. She didn't ask how I found her. She just said this. Some men fight back loud. You didn't have to. You dismantled everything with precision. Thank you. I didn't reply. I just pinned the message to the top of my inbox. A quiet reminder of what this was really about. Not revenge, not punishment, but correction. They built a world on lies. I didn't burn it. I simply pulled the pin and let gravity do the rest. By Thursday, everything was in motion. Emily's attorney reached out again. This time, the tone was different, measured, cautious. They weren't asking for assets anymore. They were offering terms. A mutual dissolution of shared property. No mention of the house. No claim to savings. Just vague language about emotional closure. They knew. The forgery charge had stuck. My attorney filed the paperwork with the county, and the mortgage company launched their internal investigation. A formal complaint. No quick denials now. No clean getaway. Her attempt to quietly pull equity from a property she didn't own was now a matter of public record. And that wasn't all. The local police department had assigned a financial crimes officer to review the documents. No sirens. No cuffs. Just quiet interviews. Scheduled calls. A process that didn't need noise to have teeth. Michael, meanwhile, had gone completely dark. His number was disconnected. His SUV was gone from the office lot. According to Mark, he'd taken an indefinite leave of absence, and HR was conducting a full audit. His name was being scrubbed from the company site in real time, like he'd never existed. Friday morning, I got a final offer from Emily's side. She would relinquish all claims. No alimony, no split assets. In exchange, she wanted the removal of the fraud complaint. I read the email twice, then once more. My response was 3 lines. Full relinquishment. Written statement of forgery. No contact moving forward. They agreed in under 3 hours. It was over. On paper, it was clean. No dramatic headlines. No court trial. No drawn-out legal war. But Emily knew. She'd lost everything she tried to steal, quietly and legally. Her lawyer sent over the signed statement. It was short, precise. An acknowledgement that she had submitted a loan application in my name without consent. That the signature was not mine. That she accepted responsibility. I printed it. Filed it under closure. I didn't celebrate. There was no champagne. No victory lap. Just silence. That night, I stood in the hallway outside the empty guest room where her boxes still sat. I opened one. Inside was a photo album she made during our first year. Vacations. Dinners. Smiles that, at the time, felt real. I closed the lid. Carried the box to the garage. Locked it in the storage cabinet. I wasn't angry anymore. Just, still. Still enough to understand that some endings don't explode, they fade. Not because the fire wasn't there, but because you stop feeding it. I'd given her years. Trust. A home. She gave me a forged document and a borrowed future. Now, I was reclaiming all of it. Quietly. Deliberately. And in full. 3 weeks later, I finalized the paperwork at the courthouse. It was early, barely 9 a.m. The clerk processed it without small talk. Just a few stamps, signatures, and a muttered, "You're all set." I walked out with a manila envelope in hand, and something heavier lifted off my back. The house was mine, uncontested, uncontaminated. The fraud claim was settled. Emily's signed admission was filed and notarized. My accounts had been locked down, renamed, rebuilt. The joint card was closed. Her name erased from every document, every login, every trace of the digital life we'd shared. It was surgical. The only thing left of her was a few cardboard boxes in the garage, which I scheduled for pickup with a local courier. Prepaid, one-way delivery to a P.O. box in Boulder she'd forwarded. I never saw her again. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't need to. The woman who walked out that night in the rain wasn't someone I'd ever known. Michael, for his part, had gone quiet too. Mark told me he was under internal review for ethics violations. Misuse of funds. They couldn't fire him officially, not yet. But he was suspended. His career, his reputation, his entire manicured life, frozen under a microscope. Dana had filed for divorce. She'd taken the house, the kids, and, according to Mark, begun working with a financial recovery firm. She was going to trace every dollar Michael ever funneled into someone else's life, including Emily's. It was strange, watching everything collapse without raising my voice once. That weekend, I sat on the back porch, coffee in hand, wind cutting through the trees. It was the first time I didn't feel like I was watching my own life from the outside. There were no dramatic outbursts, no revenge speeches, just actions. Quiet, precise, undeniable. People ask how I kept my composure, why I didn't lash out, why I didn't explode. But that's never been my way. You don't fight fire with fire. You let it burn itself out and rebuild with brick. I didn't lose anything I wasn't willing to fight for. I just refused to beg someone to stay in a life they were already dismantling behind my back. In the end, all it took was attention to detail, patience, and silence. Silence is a tool, a weapon, a boundary, and in my case, it was the most dangerous thing I had. Because while they were planning an exit, I was already building an ending, on my terms. It's been 7 months since she walked out of my life. Not with a bang, not with a confession, just a quiet door click and fading taillights. That's how real endings happen. Not like the movies, but like accidents you only understand in the aftermath. I never responded to her last email. She wrote it 2 months after the settlement. Said she missed the version of us before everything got complicated. Said she hoped I was healing. Healing, like I'd been wounded. But I wasn't broken. I was awake, focused, free. The house is different now. Not in big ways. Same walls, same layout. But everything feels different. Lighter, sharper, stripped of lies. I replaced the bedroom furniture, repainted the walls, donated the couch where she used to curl up and text him while pretending to watch Netflix. I didn't do it out of anger. I did it because silence deserves a clean room to breathe in. Michael never resurfaced. His LinkedIn remains blank. His company removed him from the leadership page. His wife kept the house. Their kids go to a new school now. I don't know what story they were told. Maybe someday they'll learn the full one. Maybe not. Emily, I don't ask about. People close to her say she moved to Portland. New job, new apartment, same last name, for now. But that's no longer my concern. I stopped tracking her the day I received the final bank statement confirming 0 ties. No shared accounts. No lingering autopays. Nothing left to sever. The silence that followed wasn't lonely. It was earned. I wake up early now. I run. I built a fire pit in the backyard with my own hands. Laid the stone one piece at a time. There's peace in structure. Clarity in repetition. A few months ago, I met someone. Nothing serious yet. Just a coffee that turned into lunch. Then conversation without calculation. She doesn't ask about my past. I don't offer it. Not yet. There's time. Because when you've been to war, quiet war, you don't rush peace. You don't fumble toward noise again. You listen. You watch. You rebuild. Not to forget, but to know. To know the difference between what looks safe and what is. Some men yell. Some throw things. Some burn bridges. I don't. I document. I plan. I act. Then I leave the wreckage behind and keep walking. That's not revenge. That's discipline. And the truth is, I don't regret what happened. She taught me something invaluable. Some people will lie straight through a kiss and call it love. And some men won't say a word until every piece is aligned. And when they finally move, it's final, it's clean, and it's unforgettable. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.